Welcome back to my review of Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life and Antidote to Chaos. We're going to be continuing on here after my little hiatus on to Rule or Chapter 7, which is Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. As I usually do for these chapters, I'm going to start with how Jordan starts out. So this first part is just going to be Jordan's text here. Get while the getting's good. Life is suffering, and that's clear. There's no more basic, irrefutable truth. It's basically what God tells Adam and Eve immediately before he kicks them out of paradise. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow in thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. Genesis 3:16 through 19, which I'm assuming here is, it says KJV here, which I'm assuming is the King James Version of the Bible. So that's from Genesis. We'll continue on here. So what in the world should be done about that? Well, the simplest, most obvious, and most direct answer is to pursue pleasure, to follow your impulses, live for the moment, do what's expedient, lie, cheat, steal, deceive, manipulate, but don't get caught. In an ultimately meaningless universe, what possible difference could it make? And this is by no means a new idea. The fact of life's tragedy and the suffering that's part of it has been used to justify the pursuit of immediate selfish gratification for a very long time. Short and sorrowful is our life, and there is no remedy when the man comes to his end, and no one has been known to return from Hades. Because we were born by mere chance, and hereafter we shall be as though we had never been, because the breath in our nostrils is smoke, and reason is a spark kindled by the beating of our hearts. When it is extinguished, the body will turn to ashes, and the spirit will dissolve like empty air. Our name will be forgotten in time, and no one will remember our works. Our life will pass away like the traces of a cloud, and be scattered like mist that is chased by the rays of the sun and overcome by its heat. For our allotted time is the passing of a shadow, and there is no return from our death, because it is sealed up and no one turns back. Come, therefore, let us enjoy the good things that exist, and make use of the creation to the full as in youth. Let us take our fill of costly wine and perfumes, and let no flower of spring pass us by. Let us crown ourselves with rosebuds before they wither. Let none of us fail to share in our revelry. Everywhere let us leave signs of enjoyment, because this is our portion and this our lot. Let us oppress the righteous poor man. Let us not spare the widow, nor regard the gray hairs of the aged. But let our might be our law of right. For what is weak proves itself to be useless. Wisdom 2:1 through 11 RSV. I'm not sure where this source is from. It may be from a portion of the Bible. I'm not very familiar with the book, to be honest. I'm going to do some checking into that, and I'll include that in the video here. The pleasure of expediency may be fleeting, but it's pleasure nonetheless, and that's something to stack up against the terror and pain of existence. Every man for himself, and the devil take the hindmost, as the old proverb has it. Why not simply take everything you can get whenever the opportunity arises? Why not determine to live in that manner? Or is there an alternative, a more powerful and more compelling way to live? So this is how Jordan starts Rule 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And he goes throughout the rest of the chapter laying out what he thinks is the antidote to that, to nihilism, to this nihilistic viewpoint. And it's a long chapter and it's a heavy chapter. And I feel like it seems like I hear myself saying that a lot about the chapters in this book. I always seem to say, like, that's one of my running themes in these reviews is it's a long chapter and it's a heavy chapter. But it is. He talks about the Bible here, and then he goes on to lay out his case for meaning, how meaning is this antidote to this nihilistic sense of life. That meaning, finding purpose and meaning in your life is the antidote to a meaningless life, to thinking and viewing your life as having no meaning or purpose at all. It's a chapter that goes against procrastination. It's a chapter that goes against wasting time and lounging around all day, being lazy, not getting things done. It's a chapter that lays out the case for picking up responsibility for what would you say, shouldering your cross in life. Jordan talks a lot about this stuff in his videos and interviews, and of course in this chapter in particular in his book, of his very strong and deep belief, his conviction that picking up responsibility in your life is what helps you live a meaningful life. He believes that responsibility is the pathway to living a meaningful life, or what's meaningful to you. And that's a way to combat this nihilistic viewpoint that people can take of their lives. I'm going to skip to the end here, and it's probably going to take me a little while, because this, like I said, it's a pretty long chapter. Here we go here. I'll read you the last few paragraphs here of the chapter, because like I said, I pretty much gave you a very, very brief, quick summary of what he talks about in the chapter, about pushing back against nihilism and this view of life having no meaning and no purpose, and how, he fights against the idea that all you should do in your life is pursue pleasure and be hedonistic and all of these things. So this chapter is an answer to that. It's refuting that argument with his belief of his conviction that picking up responsibility is the way to bolster yourself against that viewpoint, which he has said in the chapter, and he said in videos before, it's that nihilism is always there. It's always right there. It's always pressuring us. It's always at the back of our minds. But responsibility and meaning combat that and push those nihilistic thoughts, those beliefs away. So I'll skip to the end of the chapter here, where he's summarizing and talking about the value of finding meaning in life. Meaning is what manifests itself when the many levels of being arrange themselves into a perfectly functioning harmony, from atomic microcosm to cell to organ to individual to society to nature to the cosmos, so that action at each level beautifully and perfectly facilitates action at all, such that past, present, and future are all at once redeemed and reconciled. Meaning is what emerges beautifully and profoundly like a newly formed rosebud, opening itself out of nothingness into the light of sun and God. Meaning is the lotus striving upward through the dark lake depths, through the ever-clearing water, blooming forth on the very surface, revealing within itself the golden Buddha, himself perfectly integrated, such that the revelation of the divine will can make itself manifest in his every word and gesture. Meaning is when everything there is comes together in an ecstatic dance of single purpose, the glorification of a reality, so that no matter how good it has suddenly become, it can get better and better and better, more and more deeply forever into the future. Meaning happens when that dance has become so intense that all the horrors of the past, all the terrible struggle engaged in by all of life and all of humanity to that moment becomes a necessary and worthwhile part of the increasingly successful attempt to build something truly mighty and good. Meaning is the ultimate balance between, on the one hand, the chaos of transformation and possibility, and on the other, the discipline of pristine order, whose purpose is to produce out of the attendant chaos a new order that will be even more immaculate and capable of bringing forth a still more balanced and productive chaos and order. Meaning is the way, the path of life more abundant, the place you live when you're guided by love and speaking the truth, and when nothing you want or could possibly want takes any precedence over precisely that. Do what is meaningful, not what is expedient.